Hi guys, Thogrey here for a new video, and this video will be a PvP tier list video for patch 9.2.5 season 3 of Shadowlands, and this will be a ranged tier list video for 3v3. I've made a 3v3 version for melee but also for 2v2. I have a melee and a ranged tier list, and I also will make a final healers tier list for 2v2 and 3v3 in one video. I'll try to make this format a bit quicker, so now I'm going to jump right into the tier list, and you can always check on Xunamate the statistics for those specs. But I'm trying to be concise and speak about the specs that I know and also the specs that I'm facing, and try to give a fair shot at the tier list. So to explain the tier list, it is very simple. S tier is God tier, A tier means meta, B tier means average, C tier means underpowered, and D tier means garbage. I might put a B plus or a plus if I feel like I need some distinction between those specs, but for now we will keep it like this. So, we'll talk about my main class, a main spec that I'm not really playing too much at the moment because I feel like the meta really changed for the warlocks. Now, Affliction wasn't really meta in Season 3 anyways, but with those changes, with the demon armor, it was very hard to actually um, be able to survive melee cleaves, while before you could at least have a fair shot versus them, but now it is close to garbage. For now it's underpowered. I don't know if I want to put it at garbage. Is it garbage or not? I feel like you can still make it work in 3v3 because you have like good caster cleaves. You can actually play with a Shadow Priest, which is really nice and also lifts a bit of pressure from you. But you can also play with an Elemental Shaman, which gives you the oomph that sometimes you will need to actually kill targets. Of course, I've made a guide about Warlocks, like Affliction Warlocks, where you can have a Shadow Bolt build, which could give you some burst damage on a arena match, but of course it is sometimes harder to pull off because of those melee cleaves. You can also play double warlock. I guess you can still make it work, but it's not as efficient as before. You can also play with an Arcane Mage, which gives you two potential targets to get like focused, so you have some potential there. You can also play with Fire Mage, but that's really the lowest of the lowest comp wise. I prefer to play with the Frost Mage, for example. And I guess you can make some melees work, like a DH or maybe a DK, unholy DK, for example. But you don't really have the time to actually pull off some damage because those melees will just jump on you and ignore the other melee, like straight up, and use all the CC that they can to just stop you from casting. So for now, Affliction Warlocks, they are C tier. I speak a bit more about Affliction Warlocks because I know them very well. I played it a bit too much, even when distro was like S tier, like God tier over God tiers. I was still playing Affliction, trying to make it work, but at the moment it is very hard to justify them a bit higher on the tier list. Arcane Mage has a resurgence, I would say, because of the buffs, but also because of the damage and the builds that a lot of streamers try to make work. Is it garbage now? I feel like it's not garbage, but I feel like it's on the same level as Affliction. A one school spellcaster that gets trained most of the time, that sometimes have some resurgence with a lot of bursts that they can do, a lot of consistent damage that they can do, a lot of survival that they can actually provide to the team because of the mass. A mass invis is actually very useful for a lot of healers, but they are for me C tier. I would say maybe in front of Affliction at the moment because I really rate Affliction very low. I'm very close to put it in garbage, but I'm a bit of bias here. I love Affliction. I want to make it work. I don't know what you guys think. Please let me know in the comments section below what you think about the Affliction Warlock placement. Am I too harsh or am I like a bit too nice with them? So let me know in the comments below. We will talk about BM Hunters. It's a very hard spec to actually rate. In my opinion, as a ranged class, a ranged spec, for me it is S tier. Like in 2s, they have great CC, great mobility. They have a lot of consistent damage. They have a lot of burst damage with kill shot procs that they can actually let them proc like many times per flayed shot. They have, of course, the utility that some class doesn't really have. Like for example, Roar of Sacrifice is very nice versus RMPs, and I feel like with Roar of Sacrifice you can actually survive a lot of damage that you should not survive as a BM. They are a lot like they are paired most of the time with a feral druid. They are paired also with a warrior, which is KFC, a good comp. You can also play it with an enhancement shaman, which is base cleave, and I feel like you have really a spot in the meta. I guess you could say it's a bit boring, but I feel like a lot of hunters actually like BM hunters because the simplicity gives you the depth into the class that can actually bring a lot of to the team. So I feel like a good BM hunter and a bad BM hunter, the skill department on those two are actually mostly about macro gaming and not micro gaming. Your rotation, you cannot really mess it up, but it's more about the placement of the traps, placement of the CC that you can do. A lot of people can just Door of Shadows and then trap you. It's very efficient to actually trap targets reliantly. And a good BM hunter, a bad BM hunter is pretty much only macro. So let's talk about Demonology. Demonology is probably the best Warlock spec at the moment, even above Distro, vastly above Affliction. You gotta like that playstyle though. It's about the Tyrant build. You can play a lot of builds with Demo, but Tyrant build is probably the best that you can have. You will have to take a look at your pet to try to not die. Let the pet die, I would say. But the difference between a good demo and a bad demo is whenever they are going for a tyrant go. And at the moment, you have a lot of good builds. I would say for me, I'm going to make A plus. So this rating is A plus, and demonology can go A plus. For me, it's not god tier, but it is above meta. So this is really, it means close to god tier, and B plus means close to meta. But this is, for me, demonology at the moment with this meta, it is actually above meta and it is close to god tier. That's why I put it in A plus. It might be the only spec in A plus, but I want to have the distinction because for me it's not god tier. I feel like you have distinct flaws as a demonology warlock. You are still prone to get like trained, but a bit less because you are more tanky. But the pets can die really quickly if you're not noticing it. And I feel like a good warlock, like I would say a glad level warlock, demonology warlock that actually mains demonology, is vastly superior than someone that never touched demonology and played it at 2k rating. The difference is like too big to actually put them at god tier, while for example BM Hunter, the difference is not as big, and a god tier BM Hunter will always be a god tier BM Hunter. While Demonology, your comp needs a lot of attention. You need to be organized with your team. You cannot really play without comms, in my opinion. It's very hard in trees to play without comms, but with a Demonology Warlock, it's even harder because your goes are not random, but they are very short. You need to really optimize those goes, and if you are not on voice, it's very hard to make it work. Personally, I don't really like Demonology. I do play it sometimes, but I don't like to play nameplate cleaves, to be honest. Like myself, I don't like to play versus a Demonology walk because you see all those imps, those nameplates are cluttering your screen, and it's very hard to actually see what's going on the battlefield. This raw warlock, I would say it is average. I'm going to be very short with it, but people that are saying that this raw warlocks are now OP, they are just facing a comp that is actually alright. Like for example, Frostmage Warlock, Frostmage Distro or maybe Outlaw Destruction Warlock because it gives you a lot of CC so you can actually do Chaos Balls. But it's easily kickable, it's easily lined. Now that there have no stun on the Chaos Bolt, it is a bit less annoying to survive, I would say, because often than not, what happens, you got the second Chaos Bolt coming on you and you are getting stunned. Often than not, you still survive that second bolt, so you don't have the time to react because of the stun. But now, if you're seeing the stacks going up, you prepare yourself to try to line the target, and if you get the second bolt on you, you are not going to die. You need to line it as fast as possible and you can recover from it. So I think average because of the trinket changes, demon armor, the stun removal. The second part about the stun, the two set being nerfed is like irrelevant. But the four sets, like not stunning in PvP, is a big blow for destruction, especially with the trinket changes and the demon armor changes. Elemental Shaman, for me, it is meta. It is not above meta or close to god tier or god tier at all, but I feel like it is meta. Why? Because the damage that it can provide to the team is very high. The legendary that you are playing for Ascendance, like whenever it procs Ascendance, you throw a lot of lava burst with the mastery stacking that you are doing. You actually have a very high burst potential, but you don't need to cast a lot because of the 4 set. You get a lot of procs, you get a lot of instant damage that you can provide to the team, and whenever you are free, you can cast lava burst and hex easily to the enemy team and actually have a high impact. So what is going to happen with the enemy team? They will need to choose between two high priority targets. They're choosing either the elemental, but they're still going to get damaged by the elemental, or they are choosing for the other target, like for example Warlock, but the elemental is free for hexing people and also for lava bursting people. So I think just because of that threat that can be given by the elemental shaman, I think it is meta by itself. Of course, there is counters to it, but I feel like elemental really deserves the A tier into the ranged tier list. Fire mages, they are S tier. Their tankiness, their init comps being very strong, like RMP for example, is very strong. I saw also a lot of fire mages playing with shadow priests and actually got success with it. So it means god comp, very good. They survive too much things that actually are not meant to be survived. Like fire mages can just ignore a lot of crap, and I think that's why fire mages are very strong. I don't think that the damage is like gods here. They have a combust window. They can one-shot you because of the combust window, but a lot of classes can do that. I think the annoyance of fire mages, they have like literally three schools, like a ring of frost for frost school. You have a polymorph, which is the arcane school, and then you have fire like the fire damage that they can provide as a fire school. So they are very annoying to deal with. You want to kick fire, but you also don't want to kick fire because you know that the polymorph is coming to your way, and it's always a guessing game whenever you are wanting to actually kick on fire to get like less pressure on you. But whenever you're kicking fire, you are actually opening yourself up to a polymorph, and that might be like end game for you. So fire mages for now, S tier, God tier, definitely better than BM. Frost mages, they are B tier with Destruction Warlock. The nerf to the trinkets also changed a lot of things for Frost mages. They cannot really spam Frost balls anymore. They don't have a anti silence immunity or a anti interrupt immunity. So often than not, what you are doing is you are going to do Frostbolt. You're getting kicked on Frostbolt. You're going to polymorph the target, for example. But people know that they can just survive by kicking frostbolts and CCing you whenever you are going for a polymorph, and then you rinse and repeat. And frost mages, ironically, are more burst prone than a fire mage. They are really easily killed. Sometimes they don't even notice that they are dying in 2-3 globals, while fire mages have the cauterized like the cushion that they can actually provide to themselves to actually survive those damages. So I feel like Frost Mages at the moment for speed here. I guess you can still make it work. It is average though. You can still make it work because of the comps that you are going to play. But by itself, Frost Mages are really not in a good place. So let's discuss about Marksmanship Hunter. Marksmanship Hunter is a very hard spec to actually rate because I think the damage is probably god tier, but you cannot really pull it off all the time. So for me, their damage, like the ability to do damage, is very low, but the ability to actually do damage, so whenever you're doing the damage, that's very high. So for me, the difficulty of landing traps, the difficulty to actually bringing CC, reliable CC, I would say, plus also bringing reliable damage because you have so many stops. You can get CC'd while you're going. You can also get disarmed when you're going. You are going to get trained most of the time. You can cheese a lot of people, but you also can die very quickly. So for me, it is also a B tier class spec. I think it's very fun and it's above destruction. You can still make it work. You can play thug, you can play jungle, you can play a lot of S tier comps. But I feel like MM is the worst version of the hunters at the moment. I play MM whenever I'm playing hunter. It does a lot of damage. You can provide really one-shot potential, but I don't think it is competitive viable. It's still above Arcane, above Destruction, above Frost Mages, above Affliction. But by itself, they need a lot of help to make it work. Now, I think another meta spec, probably a lot of people will criticize me on it, but I feel like element balance is on the same level as elemental shamans. They have a lot of good comps, great comps, I would say. They have the potential to be very annoying to deal with. Root beam can by itself like get your trinkets if whenever you're having a big go, and also cyclones like those 0.5 second cast cyclones are very annoying to deal with. You cannot really do anything to it. You can actually kick it, but whenever you're kicking it, he goes bear form, rinse and repeat, cyclone again. So you have a lot of potential to be annoying. You are tanky still, even with the nerfs. Balance Druid also has a lot of instant good damage. I think the playstyle is not fun. I'm going to be honest. I think Balance Druids has not been fun for a while since actually Walls of Draenor, in my opinion. But since those changes in Legion, in BFA, I think the class itself is not as fun as before. But that's not like counted in the tier list. I think just a lot of people don't play Balance Druid because of the gameplay actually around Balance Druid. But it is very useful. You can play with a DH, you can play with a DK, also a very good comp. You can also play with a Fury Warrior as a Kyrian. You can also play with an Affliction Warlock to actually rot your targets. You can also play with a Shadow Priest, which is super tanky. Those two casters are really not going to die versus melees, for example, because of the peel that they can provide. They can also play as a jungler, like you can play jungle with a boomy, but it's like less effective, of course, because why would you do that with a boomy instead of a feral? But you can make it work, I guess. So for me, it's meta. Still behind elemental though, because of the obvious damage that they can provide at all times. But the burst of balance druids are very high. So I think maybe I will get criticized because of this, but I hope not. Well, you can comment me at least below what you think about the placements that I put on the tier list, and we can debate on it, of course. Shadow Priests, a very big resurgence. I think it's also A tier. It's meta because of the utility that it can provide to the team. First of all, you can play Nightfay, you can play Venthyr, you can play Necrolord, depending on the comp that you're playing. I guess Kyrian, I saw one Shadow Priest Kyrian, and I feel like it's out of place. You could just play another Covenant and have better success. But as a Shadow Priest, you are the ideal utility bot. I think damage-wise, they are underpowered. Their dots are tickling. They do tickle, except when they are going. When they're going, they're not tickling. They're like scratching you. But they are very good with unholy DKs because you can just win in the opener. You are very good with an Affliction Warlock. You actually make Affliction a bit more relevant into the comps, I would say. You can play with a Fire Mage, then you play God comp. You can play with a Frost Mage, which is also God comp. You can also make it work with a destruction. You can also make it work with an elemental. Actually, every caster cleave you can make actually a bit more safer because of your presence. But the damage is really low. You should expect to whenever you're playing Shadow Priest to actually have very low damage, and that's maybe an annoyance. I guess it's hard to actually play Shadow Priest, but if you're healing for your targets, you're CCing the healer whenever you need, you can really win games by yourself, just by your utility, your CC, and your support that you can actually provide to your team. For me, it's meta because we are in a meta where everything is instant damage. You can die in a second, you can die in 3 seconds, you can die in 30 seconds. Dampening is not really relevant, except if you are playing an RMP with an outlaw, then dampening will happen probably throughout the match. But whenever you're playing versus a melee cleave, it's often win or lose in the first 2 minutes, and then it's over, you know. So if you're playing a Shadow Priest with an Affliction Warlock, you can rot people down very quickly, and then if you're a Venthyr, you can really force them to dispel a lot of annoying abilities. But you can also play Necrolord, which gives you more survivability, or you can play Night Fate to reset CDs from other people. So this is a tier list. Let me know what you think about the tier list. I think it's hard to actually rate classes in this meta, because if you're putting those classes into a general tier list, I think a lot of classes would not be A tier, for example, or B tier or C tier for that matter. But now we are trying to compare them with each other and not to compare them with melees, because if I'm doing that, a lot of classes are like unplayable or undertuned or average. But I think you can make it work with all those comps together. Let me know what you think about this video. Thumbs up if you like the video, of course. Subscribe to the channel if you like those kinds of content. And of course, let me know in the comments below what you think about this tier list. Is it good? Is it bad? Do you play a specific spec and you think it's higher or lower? Let me know in the comments below. I try to be reactive most of the time. I try and do. But if I'm not reactive, I try to react as fast as possible. Thank you for watching this video. I appreciate you guys. We will see each other very soon. Bye.